A young woman set out for what should have been a simple solo hike through the rugged canyons of Utah and never returned, vanishing without a trace despite an exhaustive search that covered hundreds of square miles. For 3 years, the desert kept its secrets while a family clung to hope that grew thinner with each passing season, until a team of cave researchers rappelled into an unexplored cavern and discovered something that would rewrite everything they thought they knew about her disappearance. The silence in the Moab Search and Rescue Headquarters was deafening, as Captain Derek Holloway stared at the topographical map spread across the worn wooden table. Red pins marked the last known locations, blue pins showed where search teams had already combed the terrain, and yellow pins indicated areas still to be covered. It was day 4 of the search for Cassandra Reeves, and the map looked like a battlefield of failed attempts. Outside the small building, the October sun was setting behind the towering red rock formations that made this corner of Utah famous, casting long shadows across the desert floor. The temperature would drop below freezing tonight, and everyone in the room knew what that meant for a missing person with minimal gear. Cassandra had been reported missing by her roommate when she failed to return from what was supposed to be a day hike in the fiery furnace area of Arches National Park. At 23 years old, she was an experienced hiker who had moved to Moab 6 months earlier to work as a photographer for a local adventure tourism company. She knew the area well, had hiked these trails dozens of times, and was the type of person who always left detailed plans and stuck to them religiously. Her car, a dusty blue Honda Civic, had been found in the fiery furnace parking area, exactly where she said it would be. Her hiking permit, properly filled out and dated October 15, 2006, indicated she planned to complete the standard loop trail and return by 4 p.m. She had never missed a check-in call with her roommate, never deviated from her plans, and never took unnecessary risks. The fiery furnace was notorious for its confusing vanished was incomprehensible to everyone who knew her. Disoriented among the identical looking rock formations. The search had begun immediately when her roommate Maya Chen called the park rangers at 7 beyond the official trail boundaries. Maya had been expecting Cassandra home by 5 p.m. for their weekly movie ground teams pushed into the unmarked show up or answer her phone, following every possible route Cassandra might have taken if she had decided Cassandra's car still in the parking lot with no sign of her unforgiving, sent a landscape to a panic that proved to be entirely unstable rock formations that could shift without warning. The initial search focused on the marked trail system. Dogs were brought in, a network of handlers hoping the animals between towering trail that human searchers had created a natural maze. The dogs showed interest in several areas, but never found a clear trail leading away from the main path, calling Cassandra's name. What made the search particularly challenging was the nature of the landscape itself. The fiery furnace was a geological wonderland of narrow slot canyons, hidden arches, and maze-like passages carved by millions of years of wind and water erosion. A person could be just 50 feet away from a search team and remain completely hidden behind a wall of rock. The sandstone absorbed sound, making it difficult for voices to carry, and the complex topography created countless blind spots where someone could be trapped or injured without any hope of being seen from above. Captain Holloway had coordinated dozens of search and rescue operations in his 15 years with the team, but Cassandra's case was different. There was no logical explanation for her disappearance. She hadn't fallen from a cliff, there were no signs of animal attack, and she hadn't simply gotten lost on a well-marked trail. Her water bottle, hiking poles, and backpack were nowhere to be found, suggesting she had left the parking area with her gear. But after that point, it was as if she had been erased from existence. The search teams found no footprints in the sandy washes, no disturbed vegetation, no dropped items or torn clothing. It was as if Cassandra Reeves had walked into the desert and been swallowed by the earth itself. As the 4th day of searching drew to a close, Captain Holloway made the difficult decision to scale back the operation. They had covered every accessible area within a reasonable distance of the trail, followed up on every possible lead, and found absolutely nothing. The official search would continue for 3 more days with a smaller team, but the reality was becoming clear to everyone involved. Cassandra Reeves had vanished into one of the most thoroughly searched landscapes in Utah, and despite their best efforts, the desert was keeping its secrets. The transition from an active search to a cold case was a gradual, heartbreaking process that unfolded over the following months. Cassandra's parents, Robert and Linda Reeves, drove from their home in Colorado to Moab within hours of learning about their daughter's disappearance. They were a quiet, methodical couple who had raised Cassandra to be independent and adventurous. But they were unprepared for the nightmare of having their child simply vanish. Robert, a retired engineer, approached the search with the same systematic thinking he had applied to his career, creating detailed spreadsheets of search areas and maintaining constant communication with Captain Holloway. Linda, a former teacher, organized volunteer efforts and maintained a social media presence that kept Cassandra's case in the public eye long after the news crews had moved on to other stories. The family hired private investigators and consulted with psychics, following every lead no matter how unlikely it seemed. They posted flyers throughout the region, offering a substantial reward for any information leading to Cassandra's whereabouts. The reward money attracted its share of false leads and well-meaning but ultimately useless tips from people who thought they had seen her in various locations across the Southwest. Each lead required investigation. Each phone call brought a moment of hope followed by crushing disappointment. The Reeves family learned to live in a state of suspended animation, unable to grieve properly because they had no confirmation of death, unable to move forward because they had no closure. Maya Chen, Cassandra's roommate and closest friend in Moab, became an unofficial coordinator for ongoing search efforts. She organized weekend volunteer searches, maintained relationships with local climbing and hiking groups who might stumble across evidence during their own adventures, and kept detailed records of every area that had been searched. Maya had moved to Moab around the same time as Cassandra, drawn by the same combination of outdoor recreation opportunities and small-town community that had attracted her friend. The two women had bonded over their shared love of photography and adventure, spending countless hours exploring the Red Rock country together. Maya blamed herself for not insisting on joining Cassandra that day, a guilt that would haunt her for years to come. The case attracted attention from amateur investigators and true crime enthusiasts, who pored over every detail looking for clues that professional searchers might have missed. Online forums dedicated to missing persons cases featured lengthy discussions about Cassandra's disappearance, with armchair detectives proposing theories ranging from the plausible to the absurd. Some suggested she had been abducted by human traffickers, others believed she had fallen into an unmapped cave system, and a few even proposed that she had staged her own disappearance to start a new life elsewhere. The speculation was both helpful and harmful, generating new ideas for search areas while also spreading misinformation that complicated the official investigation. Captain Holloway never officially closed the case, but as months turned into years, the active investigation inevitably wound down. New missing persons cases demanded attention and resources, and the trail in Cassandra's case had gone completely cold. The captain kept her file on his desk as a reminder and continued to follow up on any new information that came in. But the reality was that without fresh evidence, there was little more his team could do. The desert had claimed another victim, and despite their best efforts, they had been unable to bring her home. The 3-year anniversary of Cassandra's disappearance passed quietly in October 2009. Her parents held a small memorial service in Moab, attended by the search and rescue volunteers who had worked tirelessly to find their daughter. Maya spoke about Cassandra's passion for capturing the beauty of the desert through her photography, her infectious enthusiasm for exploring new places, and her unwavering optimism even in difficult situations. The service was both a celebration of Cassandra's life and an acknowledgement that she was probably never coming home. If you're finding this story as compelling as we are, please hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The breakthrough that would finally solve the mystery came from an unexpected source. Dr. Marcus Webb was a speleologist from the University of Utah who specialized in mapping and studying cave systems throughout the Colorado Plateau. His research focused on understanding how water movement through limestone and sandstone formations created the complex underground networks that honeycombed much of the region. In the spring of 2009, Dr. Webb received a research grant to conduct a comprehensive survey of previously unexplored cave systems in the Moab area, with the goal of better understanding groundwater flow patterns and their impact on surface ecology. Dr. Webb's team consisted of graduate students and experienced cavers who combined scientific rigor with the technical skills needed to safely explore dangerous underground environments. They used ground-penetrating radar and other advanced equipment to identify potential cave entrances that might have been missed by previous surveys. The work was slow and methodical, requiring careful documentation of each discovery and extensive safety protocols for underground exploration. Many of the caves they investigated turned out to be shallow alcoves or dead-end passages, but occasionally they would find something significant enough to warrant detailed study. In late September 2009, the team was working in a remote area several miles from the main fiery furnace trail system when their equipment detected what appeared to be a substantial void beneath a seemingly solid rock formation. The entrance, when they finally located it, was barely visible, hidden behind a curtain of desert vegetation and accessible only through a narrow crack in the sandstone that required removing loose rocks to widen it enough for human passage. Dr. Webb's initial assessment suggested this was a significant find, potentially a large chamber system that had never been documented or explored. The descent into what Dr. Webb's team would later designate as Cave System MR47 required careful preparation and specialized equipment. The entrance crack opened into a vertical shaft that dropped approximately 40 feet before leveling off into a horizontal passage. Graduate student Jennifer Nakamura was the first to rappel down, her headlamp cutting through the absolute darkness as she called up descriptions of what she was seeing. The air was surprisingly fresh, suggesting the cave system had multiple openings that allowed for circulation, and the walls showed clear evidence of water flow patterns that had carved the passages over thousands of years. What made this particular cave system unusual was its complexity. Most caves in the area were relatively simple formations, but MR47 branched into multiple passages that extended much farther than initial surveys had suggested. Dr. Webb's team spent 3 days mapping the main corridors, documenting the geological features, and taking samples for later analysis. The cave showed signs of occasional flooding, with debris lines on the walls indicating that water levels could rise dramatically during heavy rainfall events. This flooding pattern was consistent with the flash flood cycles that were common in the desert, where sudden storms could send torrents of water through normally dry washes and into underground systems. On their 4th day of exploration, Jennifer was working her way through a narrow passage in the deepest section of the cave when her headlamp illuminated something that didn't belong in the natural environment. At first, she thought it might be a piece of driftwood or other organic debris that had been washed into the cave during a flood. But as she moved closer, the shape became unmistakably human. Wedged against a rock formation in a small alcove was a complete human skeleton, still partially clothed in the tattered remains of hiking gear. The discovery sent shockwaves through the research team. Dr. Webb immediately called for a halt to all exploration activities and contacted local authorities. Within hours, the cave entrance was secured as a potential crime scene, and Captain Holloway found himself rappelling into the underground chamber he had never known existed just miles from where his teams had conducted their exhaustive search 3 years earlier. The irony was not lost on him that Cassandra Reeves might have been within a few miles of the search headquarters the entire time, hidden in a place that no one had thought to look. The skeleton was positioned in a way that suggested the person had crawled into the alcove, possibly seeking shelter or trying to escape rising water. The remains were remarkably well preserved due to the cave's stable temperature and low humidity, allowing investigators to recover not just bones but also fragments of clothing, hiking boots, and personal items that had survived the underground environment. A water bottle with a distinctive purple cap lay nearby, along with the corroded remains of what appeared to be a digital camera and the metal frame of a small backpack. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the forensic anthropologist called in to examine the remains, was able to determine that the skeleton belonged to a young woman, approximately 5 feet 6 inches tall, who had died sometime within the past several years. The bones showed no signs of trauma or violence, suggesting that death had occurred from natural causes, most likely exposure or dehydration. The positioning of the remains and the presence of personal items indicated that the woman had been alive when she entered the cave and had survived for some time, before succumbing to her circumstances. The identification process began immediately, with dental records being the most reliable method for confirming the skeleton's identity. Cassandra's dental records were retrieved from her family dentist in Colorado and compared to the skull found in the cave. The match was conclusive and heartbreaking. After 3 years of searching, wondering, and hoping, the Reeves family finally had their answer. Cassandra had been found, but not in the way anyone had hoped or expected. The question that immediately arose was how Cassandra had ended up in a cave system that was miles from her intended hiking route and hidden behind an entrance that was barely visible even to experienced cavers. Dr. Webb's analysis of the cave's flood patterns provided a possible explanation. The cave system was connected to a network of washes and drainage channels that could carry enormous volumes of water during flash flood events. If Cassandra had been caught in such a flood while hiking in one of the many slot canyons in the area, she could have been swept underground through one of the cave's secondary entrances and deposited in the chamber where she was found. Weather records from October 15, 2006, showed that a significant storm system had moved through the region that afternoon, bringing heavy rainfall to the higher elevations. The timing was consistent with Cassandra's planned return time, suggesting she might have been caught in the storm while trying to complete her hike. Flash floods in desert environments can develop with terrifying speed, turning dry washes into raging torrents within minutes. Even experienced hikers can be caught off guard by the sudden appearance of water in areas that had been completely dry just moments before. The recovery of Cassandra's remains was a delicate operation that required the combined expertise of cave rescue specialists, forensic investigators, and the research team that had discovered her. Every item found in the cave was carefully documented and removed for analysis, with the hope that her camera might contain images that could help reconstruct her final hours. The process took 2 full days, with investigators working in shifts to ensure that no evidence was overlooked in the challenging underground environment. The forensic analysis of Cassandra's personal effects revealed a story that was both tragic and remarkable. Her digital camera, despite being submerged and corroded, yielded several recoverable images when examined by specialists at the State Crime Lab. The final photos on the memory card showed Cassandra hiking through increasingly narrow slot canyons, her images capturing the dramatic play of light and shadow on the red sandstone walls that had drawn her to this remote area. The timestamp on the last photo was 2:47 p.m. on October 15th, just over an hour before the storm system reached the area. The images painted a picture of Cassandra's final afternoon that was both beautiful and haunting. She had clearly ventured off the established fiery furnace trail, drawn by the photographic opportunities in the more remote canyons. Her camera captured stunning compositions of natural arches, twisted juniper trees growing from impossible cracks in the rock, and the intricate patterns carved by water and wind over millennia. The progression of photos showed her moving deeper into the canyon system, following what appeared to be a dry wash that would have seemed perfectly safe under normal conditions. Dr. Martinez's examination of the skeletal remains provided additional insights into Cassandra's final days. The forensic evidence suggested she had survived in the cave for several days, possibly as long as a week, before succumbing to dehydration and exposure. Scratch marks on the cave walls near where she was found indicated she had attempted to climb out of the chamber, and the positioning of rocks suggested she had tried to build some kind of shelter or signal. Her water bottle, when analyzed, still contained traces of the sports drink she had been carrying, indicating she had rationed her supplies carefully in an attempt to survive until rescue arrived. The cave system's layout explained why Cassandra's calls for help had never been heard by the search teams working above ground. The chamber where she was found was approximately 60 feet below the surface, with multiple layers of solid rock between her location and the desert floor. Sound simply could not penetrate the geological barrier, no matter how loudly she might have shouted. The cruel irony was that search teams had passed directly over her location multiple times during the initial search, completely unaware that she was trapped just beneath their feet. Captain Holloway's reconstruction of events, based on the physical evidence and weather data, painted a picture of a perfect storm of circumstances that had led to tragedy. Cassandra had been photographing in a narrow slot canyon when the flash flood struck, giving her no time to reach higher ground. The wall of water had swept her into the cave system through a secondary entrance that was normally dry, but became a raging torrent during the storm. She had been deposited in the chamber as the floodwaters receded, leaving her trapped in a space she could not escape from without technical climbing equipment. The discovery brought a mixture of relief and renewed grief to the Reeves family. Robert and Linda finally had answers to the questions that had tormented them for 3 years, but those answers came with the devastating confirmation that their daughter was gone forever. The family held a proper funeral service, attended by hundreds of people whose lives Cassandra had touched during her brief time in Moab. Maya Chen delivered a eulogy that celebrated Cassandra's passion for adventure and her talent for finding beauty in the most unexpected places, noting that even in death she had been discovered in a location of stunning natural beauty that few humans would ever see. The case prompted significant changes in how search and rescue operations were conducted in the area. Captain Holloway worked with Dr. Webb to create detailed maps of known cave systems, ensuring that future searches would include underground areas that had previously been overlooked. New protocols were established for investigating reports of missing hikers, with specific attention paid to the possibility that victims might have been swept into underground systems during flash flood events. The collaboration between search and rescue teams and geological researchers became a model for other regions facing similar challenges. Dr. Webb's research team continued their work in the cave system, ultimately discovering that MR47 was part of a much larger underground network that extended for miles beneath the desert surface. Their findings were published in several geological journals and contributed to a better understanding of how water moved through the region's complex underground systems. The cave where Cassandra was found was permanently sealed after the investigation was complete, both to preserve it as a research site and to prevent other accidental entrapments. If you're moved by Cassandra's story and want to see more content that honors the memory of those we've lost, while exploring the mysteries that surround us, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. The investigation also revealed important safety information for hikers in slot canyon environments. Weather conditions can change rapidly in desert regions, and flash floods can occur even when storms are miles away from a hiker's location. The National Park Service began requiring more detailed safety briefings for backcountry permits, emphasizing the importance of checking weather forecasts, not just for the immediate hiking area, but for the entire watershed that could affect canyon systems. Maya Chen eventually became a certified wilderness guide, dedicating her career to helping others safely explore the landscapes that Cassandra had loved so much. She established a scholarship fund in Cassandra's name to support young photographers interested in documenting the natural world, ensuring that her friend's passion for capturing the beauty of wild places would continue to inspire future generations. The scholarship recipients were required to complete wilderness safety training as part of their program, a requirement that Maya insisted upon to honor Cassandra's memory while preventing similar tragedies. The impact of Cassandra's case extended far beyond the immediate Moab community, influencing search and rescue protocols across the American Southwest. Her story became a case study taught in wilderness rescue training programs, highlighting the importance of considering underground systems when conducting searches in karst and sandstone terrain. The National Association for Search and Rescue incorporated lessons learned from her case into their standard curriculum, emphasizing that traditional grid searches might miss victims who had been displaced by natural forces into areas that seemed geologically impossible to access. Dr. Webb's continued research in the years following the discovery revealed that the cave system where Cassandra was found was part of an extensive underground network that had been carved by thousands of years of intermittent flooding. His team's mapping efforts, funded in part by grants secured after the high-profile nature of Cassandra's case, showed that similar cave systems existed throughout the Colorado Plateau region. Many of these underground chambers had multiple entrances that were only accessible during flood events, creating potential traps for anyone caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. The geological survey work that emerged from Cassandra's case led to the identification of over 40 previously unknown cave systems in the greater Moab area alone. Each discovery was carefully documented and cross-referenced with historical missing persons cases, leading to the resolution of 2 additional cold cases from the 1990s. In both instances, hikers who had vanished without a trace were found to have been victims of similar flash flood events that had swept them into underground chambers where they had perished from exposure and dehydration. Captain Holloway, now nearing retirement, reflected on how Cassandra's case had fundamentally changed his approach to search and rescue operations. The traditional methods of ground searches, helicopter surveys, and search dog deployment remained important, but they were no longer considered sufficient for cases involving missing persons in geologically complex terrain. His department now maintained detailed geological surveys and worked closely with university research teams to understand the underground topography of their search areas. The technology used in search and rescue operations also evolved in response to lessons learned from Cassandra's case. Ground-penetrating radar, previously used primarily for archaeological and geological surveys, became a standard tool for search teams working in areas with known cave systems. Thermal imaging equipment was upgraded to detect heat signatures through greater depths of rock, and new communication systems were developed that could potentially reach victims trapped in underground chambers. Maya Chen's scholarship program had grown into a significant force for wilderness education and safety. Over the years, dozens of young photographers had received funding to pursue their passion for documenting natural landscapes while learning essential survival skills. The program required recipients to complete wilderness first aid training, advanced navigation courses, and emergency communication protocols. Many of the scholarship recipients went on to become wilderness guides, park rangers, and search and rescue volunteers, creating a network of safety-conscious outdoor enthusiasts who carried Cassandra's legacy forward. The Reeves family established a foundation dedicated to improving wilderness safety and supporting search and rescue operations. Robert's engineering background proved invaluable in developing new equipment and protocols, while Linda's teaching experience helped create educational materials that were distributed to hiking groups and outdoor recreation programs across the country. Their foundation funded research into emergency communication devices, supported the development of improved personal locator beacons, and provided grants for search and rescue teams to acquire specialized equipment for underground operations. The cave system where Cassandra was found became the subject of ongoing scientific study, with researchers from multiple universities collaborating to understand its formation and the hydrological processes that had created such a complex underground network. The research had implications beyond search and rescue, contributing to understanding of groundwater flow, flood management, and the geological history of the Colorado Plateau. Dr. Webb's team published their findings in prestigious journals, ensuring that the scientific knowledge gained from this tragedy would benefit researchers and safety professionals for years to come. The story of Cassandra's disappearance and eventual discovery also highlighted the importance of community involvement in search and rescue operations. The volunteers who had searched tirelessly for 3 years, the researchers who had discovered her remains, and the investigators who had pieced together her final hours, all played crucial roles in bringing closure to her family. Their dedication demonstrated that solving complex missing persons cases often required the combined efforts of professional searchers, scientific researchers, and committed community members. As the 10th anniversary of Cassandra's disappearance approached, the changes implemented in response to her case had become standard practice throughout the region. Search and rescue teams routinely consulted geological surveys before beginning operations. Underground search protocols were included in all training programs, and the collaboration between researchers and emergency responders had become a model for other regions facing similar challenges. The tragedy that had claimed Cassandra's life had ultimately led to improvements that would help prevent similar losses in the future. The annual memorial service held in Cassandra's honor had evolved into a broader celebration of wilderness safety and education. Attended by search and rescue volunteers, researchers, outdoor enthusiasts, and families of other missing persons, the event served as both a remembrance of those lost and a commitment to preventing future tragedies. Speakers shared stories of successful rescues that had been made possible by the improved protocols and equipment developed in response to Cassandra's case, providing tangible evidence that her legacy was saving lives.